Hi. Employee stock option plans are really popular in the US. ESOPs are not the topic of this video. Today is about building legacies, retaining jobs, and creating wealth through worker ownership, a 2021 report released by the Ohio Worker Ownership Network, a group of nonprofits promoting the expansion of worker ownership in the United States and especially Ohio. I think they are a weird but perhaps more practical option if your goal is to expand employee ownership, employee power in the United States or in whatever country. So for this video, a few things to keep in mind. Employees of ESOPs can have more influence over their employer, can be better off than employees of traditionally owned enterprises, where employees don't have the right to buy the allocated stocks at a fixed price. Compared to traditionally owned companies, ESOPs are more of a promise. Work hard, work for a certain amount of time, increase the value of this company, increasing the value of your investment, and when you are ready to leave, you can have the option to buy the stock allocated to you, and you can sell that at a higher price because the company rose in value. The report calls ESOPs a form of employee ownership, and I hesitate to agree. A lot of ESOPs are, say, only 30% worker owned. Only 30% of the stock is set aside for the employees to maybe one day buy them and make a profit selling them. It depends on growth and also whether or not the employee even has the money to buy those stocks. I think they're better for employees, but in the long term, on a large scale, if your idea is to change on a large scale, I see a lot of red flags, but in the end, I do think they are better than traditionally owned companies. Anyway, the report identifies 3 challenges that Ohio is facing and that the country at large is facing. And it says that ESOPs, co-ops, worker ownership in general can help solve those problems. So, challenge number 1 is the growing wealth inequality in Ohio and in the US. Challenge number 2 is we need stable wealth building jobs. Challenge number 3 is the silver tsunami, overcoming the silver tsunami. So a lot of businesses are owned by baby boomers, and they've invested a lot of time, a lot of money into those businesses. At the time of this report, about 80% of baby boomers did not have an exit plan. 54% of businesses in Ohio are owned by baby boomers. So that means grocery stores, home care facilities, child care facilities, the people employed, the jobs will be lost, the investment, the reputation of the business will be lost, and the owner will not have a return on that investment. Okay, but how can, according to this report, expanding employee ownership address these 3 problems? Number 1, using employee stock option plans, providing this option to retiring baby boomers, gives them a potential buyer that they had not considered. They can just sell it to their employees or partially sell it to employees. A lot of the times employees don't have the money, obviously, to buy the whole business, so they could be part of a package, part of an exit plan. And the silver tsunami can be averted or partially averted. The communities, they keep the grocery store, the childcare facilities, the jobs are retained, and the legacy of the business is retained. And the baby boomer gets a return on their investment. Problem number 2, what about the stable wealth building jobs? Both cooperatives and employee stock option plans have been shown to address that problem. If employees become owners or part owners, the business doesn't suddenly explode. They can succeed and they can do well. The report found that worker cooperatives have an average salary of $19.67, and that's especially good considering a lot of the workers are women of color and in traditionally low-paying industries. Number 2, several studies have found that ESOPs pay wages that are 8 to 20% higher than their traditionally owned counterpart. Number 3, in 2018, the social survey found that employee owners are less likely to be laid off. In 2018, they were 6.2 times less likely to be laid off. Also, during these past 2 years, co-ops and ESOPs experienced fewer closures and were more likely to provide health protection for their workers. Lastly, in 2018, it was found that the median individual ESOP account was valued at $134,000. And cooperators, people in cooperatives, had about $10,000 in their individual bank accounts. At the same time, the Federal Reserve found that 40% of the workers they surveyed could not have afforded an emergency expense of more than $400. People in ESOPs and cooperatives can do well even when most workers are not doing well. ESOPs are not like your bank account. There are a lot of steps and you need to have the money to purchase that ESOP. So I don't want to make that a comparison, apples to apples, between an individual bank account and ESOP. There are layers, taxes, other steps. But what about the third problem? The already severe and growing wealth inequality. First of all, because ESOPs and cooperatives do provide better benefits and better income to their workers, that suggests that on a large scale, across a long period of time, they could help to shrink the inequality gap. Second of all, within a cooperative, within an ESOP, we don't see the same dramatic differences between the highest paid employee and the lowest paid employee. Of course, that second point does not mean that the nationwide gap would shrink. Just because within a business, within a few businesses even, employees are paid more reasonable wages, that only means that those workers within those enclosed environments are doing better. That does not mean nationwide all workers are doing better. And on that point, one Harvard Business Review found that if all US businesses were 30% employee owned, the wealth of the bottom 50% of America would quadruple. That sounds great, but it brings us to the real question. How would you expand employee ownership? And more importantly, maybe expand employee power. Ownership does not always mean control over a business. These are important questions. They deserve to be addressed, and I will. Anyway, Ohio is trying to address the major economic problems of today through worker ownership, through ESOPs and co-ops, and it has been shown to work to address, again, the immediate needs and maybe in the future tackle those large-scale problems. I don't necessarily agree with all of the relevant assumptions, followed some sources, and one of them at least did not seem to justify the point that it was being used to make. But overall, I think this report is pretty good. And I agree that we need more worker ownership because it can help solve people's problems. I hope this has been slightly informative, and good luck. Have a good day. And thank you for watching.